It's time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the Property Podcast. It is episode 91. I am Rob B. With me, as always, is Rob D. Wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Hi, Rob. Good morning to you, as we're recording this in morning.
Yeah, good morning. Morning for us. And what an exciting episode we've got this morning. Not only are we looking back on our predictions from nearly a year ago, which is always a dangerous and embarrassing thing to do, potentially, but we've also got a heck of a news story as well. And a resource, of course. So loads to fit in. Before we do that, let's start by talking about what we've been up to. Rob, nice quiet week for you?
Yeah, caught up on a few emails, sorted a few bits and bobs out, and my wife had a baby.
Woohoo!
So this morning's episode is very much fueled on coffee. So if I'm not on the highs and energy that I normally have, please forgive me. My daughter's only 4 days old as we record this. And yes, she is absolutely gorgeous. And I believe that is parental bias, but I think she's absolutely beautiful. So very, very lucky. Mum and baby are doing very well. Thank you to people who've already got in touch by email. Very, very nice of you. Hopefully we'll get through the episode, Rob, but if you do hear a snoring halfway through, it's not because you're dull, it's because the coffee is faded.
Yeah, well, huge congratulations. I'm sure there are lots of people in the Property Hub who will be congratulating you as well. And I hope you've already got her hooked up with an iTunes account, ready for her to leave a review as soon as she can type.
Yeah, or I can even just do a fake one. Yeah, but we'll edit that out, so iTunes done here. She'll be on the Property Hub soon. She'll probably have more posts than me by the end of the year, which won't be hard.
Probably will. Well, yeah, congratulations for that. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
The second most exciting thing that's happened this week is that we have confirmed our January Property Hub meetup, because it's about a year ago since we gave birth to that. We had a meetup in January last year. We had another one in the summer, and we're doing it again on Sunday, the 4th of January is when we're going to be having our meetup. It's going to be in King's Cross again. And for a lot of us, it's going to be the day before we all go back to work. So it's the perfect way to round off your break. 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. right in King's Cross. Nice and easy to get to. You do need to get your ticket quick, because last time, if you were at the event in the summer, it got a little bit sweaty. So we're limiting numbers this time. So get in quickly if you want a ticket. It's free as ever. And all you need to do to grab it is to go to thepropertyhub.net/meetup.
Fantastic. So if that wasn't enough, a baby and the meetup announced our news story this week. This one really caught us by surprise, but it's fantastic news. Stamp duty reform. Absolutely brilliant. Rob, we've complained about stamp duty numerous times over the nearly 100 episodes we've done. We complained that it was, a really poor system. It was unfair. It was ineffective. It actually held back the market at certain price points. And yet the autumn statement which came out this week, the Chancellor has announced that stamp duty has been reformed, and it's already happened. So it kicked in at midnight of the announcement. And already we're under a new system. So absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So George Osborne clearly listens to the show, which is nice to know. Yeah. It just absolutely came out of nowhere, this one. If you didn't hear the announcement, basically, as before, no taxes paid on the first 125,000. But whereas before, as soon as you go over the threshold, you then get charged on the entirety of the property's value. Now it's like income tax. So you only get charged by the amount that's within each band. So before, it went up to 1% after 125,000. Now it's 2%, but it's only 2% of the amount over that figure. And it goes up from there. The ultimate effect of this is apparently, according to the government's figures, that 98% of people are going to end up paying less stamp duty as a result. I think it's something like 940,000 or something is the value at which you start paying more. So it's pretty hard to argue with. I mean, obviously, there are going to be some developers of multi-million pound properties who are cursing this right now. But for almost everyone, this is a great result. And it is certainly a lot fairer. And it means that there's going to be less of those really weird distortions around the cutoff points and those weird situations. So I worked out if you're buying a property for £126,000 now, as opposed to a couple of weeks ago, Previously, you would have paid £1,260. You'd have paid 1% in stamp duty. You'll now pay £20. So for most people who are buying properties around that kind of price level, this is fantastic news.
It really is. And I think this will have a positive impact on property prices in general. I don't think it's going to be a surge, but what you'll find is all those properties that were sort of in limbo land at 125 or 250 at the previous cut-off points, now they can accept offers of 128. People can put offers in of 128, 130 and not feel like they're being completely stung. And I think that will just have a small percentage effect over the coming year, as now people aren't restricted by stamp duty. So a great move, maybe a clever move as well, because the election coming up in May, if people feel a bit wealthier, if their property prices continue to go up, we've said this about the Help to Buy scheme. Is it a political move to help us feel wealthier and therefore better feelings about the government? Maybe, but whether it's political or not, there's no arguing that the vast majority of people are very happy with the reforms, Rob and I included.
Definitely. So we'll be watching how that one plays out over the next little while. But if you are not fully up to speed with the story and if you want to see the new bans in full, there's a link in the show notes to a really good BBC article that explains it in full. That's going to be in the show notes, along with everything else we talk about today. Those show notes are at thepropertyhub.net/2014 review.
Okay, so it's time for our topic of the week. And we're being brave. First of all, we were brave enough to put our predictions out there. It's something I've done for the last couple of years. And Rob and I put out a year ago. So we are now looking at the figures. How did we do? Well, let's see. So before we get going, let's look at the data we've used, Rob. So there's different metrics. There's different ways of addressing this and looking at it. And I suppose we could choose one that suits our agenda, but we're going to go with the most popular.
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways of measuring what's happened to house prices, all these different indices, none of which seem to agree with each other because they've all got their own methodologies. And there's actually an article in the show notes which we've put in there about how the different indexes work and what they mean. Because it's really interesting when you see what they include and exclude. And there's no one which is perfect, but it's worth seeing. So when you're seeing that, the Nationwide Index says this, the Halifax says that, so you actually see what it is that they're measuring. So that's worth a read. But we've looked at a couple of different figures. The Nationwide's index last December, end of last December, had the average house price in the UK at 176,000, and now it says it's 189,400. That would be an increase this calendar year of 8.5%. That, as we've said, is not the only index in town. We've also looked at the Land Registry, and they had last December's price lower. They had it at £167,300, and now they say it's £177,400. So that increase is just under 6% this calendar year. So you've got the Nationwide saying it's gone up 8.5%, and the Land Registry saying it's gone up just under 6%. So where are they really? We don't actually know. But for our purposes, we can probably quite safely say that it's somewhere between 6 and 8% growth this year.
So how did we do? Well, instead of rewriting the script and pretending, we did otherwise, let's play back a clip of what Rob and I discussed a year ago. But Rob, are you ready? Let's stick our necks in the line and let's give what we think is going to happen for the coming year.
Okay. Well, it's only fair that as you were so accurate last year that you go first again, because you're clearly the man to listen to.
Obviously. Right, okay. So let's have a look. Help to Buy. 2014 for me will be the year that Help to Buy really has an impact. So it started to have an influence on the property market, but I really think it'll get into full flow next year. We have got to really think about where these areas are going to affect most. I think the Help to Buy will have the biggest impact on northern properties just because of the price levels. I've mentioned this before, but if you're looking at a home and it's 100,000 and you only need to get 5,000 together to get on the ladder, it's not a lot of money. Yes, £5,000 is still, something that needs to be saved up, but it's achievable. And I think more and more people will find that achievable next year and will work to get on the property ladder. So I think that will have upward pressures on all aspects of the market, particularly further north. So that being said, I don't believe London will no longer lead the way. I don't believe that London will be the powerhouse that it's been. I don't believe it's going to crash. I just don't think it's going to be the strongest performer next year. That's probably the riskiest prediction I'm going to make here. I think some other areas will outperform London. The commuter towns, so we'll call them the southeast. And I think other areas have the potential, Yorkshire, Midlands, Northwest as well, to do very well.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't think that London will lead the way next year, because I just think that after such a long period of growth, it's unsustainable. Now, whether that happens next year or the year after, we'll have to wait and see. It doesn't mean that London's a bad investment. It's just I don't bank on big gains over the next few years. A couple of things to add. I think the election that Mark mentioned as well will have a big impact on property prices, because I think the government really wants the property market to perform well up until the election. So that being said, I don't think there's going to be any major change to the Help to Buy scheme unless the property market gets really heated. Certainly not for the first 6 months. And I don't think interest rates will change. Now, I can hear people going, but the government don't control interest rates. Yes, maybe not directly, but they certainly have an influence on the Bank of England. I don't think interest rates will rise in 2014 either. So a lot of predictions here, a lot of general things, but I'm going to really stick my neck on the line and I'm going to give you a number. I gave you a number last year and I'm going to give you a number this year. I think the UK property market, on average, will grow 4 to 5%. And I think I'm being conservative. I'm going to go 4 to 5% next year, UK average. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it ends up at 6, but I'll go small this year. I said 2 to 4 last year. I'll just bring it down to 1 percentage point, 4 to 5% UK average. There you go. I've said it.
Wow. Okay. Well, I really appreciate all our experts putting their necks on the line with their predictions. You've done it as well. I suppose I should. I think I broadly agree with the consensus in that we're going to see the best growth in the areas that have struggled as we start seeing residential buyers return to the market, Help to Buy, all that kind of thing. I think we can agree that with the election coming up next year, the feel-good factor is going to be there. The government will be wanting everyone to feel secure in the value of their home if they've already got one, and they'll want them to be kind of getting into their own home if they've been sort of struggling for the last 5-7 years to do so. The big question is, can London keep growing? It seems unlikely that London can keep outpacing the rest of the UK, but then you could equally have said that for every year for the last 10 years. There's a really great blog called monovator.com, and the guy who writes that for the last 10 years, he's been saying, prices in London are ridiculous. I'm not going to buy now. They're going to come crashing down any minute, and then I'll get in there. And every year he just gets more and more annoyed at how wrong he was and how much money it's cost him. And now he can't get on the ladder at all. I think that's a really valid point. So London prices might seem unsustainable, but you could have argued that for a long time. So I'm going to say that London is not going to fall. That could potentially happen at some point as all the international investors pull money out into other asset classes. This year, I'm going to say that it's going to keep pace with the rest of the UK. So we're probably going to see less of a kind of a 2-speed housing market than we did in 2013. It's more like similar growth in all areas. As for an actual number, I'm just going to back a winner. If the OBR last year was the closest, I'm going to go with them. They said 5.2%. I'm going to go 5.5.
Oh, you know what? I'm jealous. I should have gone with 5.5. I think you're right. Can I do 4 to 6?
No.
Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we talked about generally has really come true. So although it seems crazy, because the North has had a good year outside of London, the South East, the ripple effect and everything else, it just seems like, of course that happened. But a year ago, they hadn't. So we've talked about that, and I'm pretty chuffed that we've both, commented on that and it's played out. So we definitely got that right. That's great to see. But in terms of numbers, we were probably a little bit conservative, and we actually did say that at the time. You can hear me go, not sure whether to go a bit higher, but by nature, I like to play it safe with these things, and I know you're the same, Rob. So I said 4 to 5%. Rob, you said 5.5%. And according to Rick's, it's just under 6%. And that's what we looked at last year. So in terms of what Rick's is saying, we've done pretty well. Now, that's without November and December's data yet. It may change slightly, but at the moment, we're nearly on the money. So that's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with that. And looking at some of the other experts, a lot of people were miles off, to be fair. And we won't name and shame. What we will do is name the people who were close. Peter Bolton King from Rick's, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, said 8%. And so did Ray Bulger, the well-known mortgage broker. So, Rob, overall, we're pretty happy.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's worth saying that a year ago, those kind of percentages were probably looking a little bit bullish, but then prices just absolutely raced away. 8% was certainly way above what I thought it would be. I sort of came in at 5.5, sort of thinking that was sort of relatively kind of safe towards optimistic, but then 8% is quite something. And obviously, if we get a little bit deeper, there's a lot of variation. Obviously, London has had massive growth. London does seem to be cooling now, especially prime London. Things seem to be cooling off. Maybe the stamp duty changes that we talked about, we'll see that happening even more because so much of prime London is going to end up attracting more stamp duty. It's part of that 2%, not the 98%. So London's cooling, but if you look at the stats, it's still raced ahead of everywhere else so far. And beyond that, the pattern is kind of what you'd expect. Cities like Manchester, Bristol in particular, and Cambridge have done really well this year. Wales has struggled, as it has done for the last few years. So there's kind of nothing massively unexpected in there. But for the most part, I think that we could say that we were a bit surprised by how strongly prices have grown. But a lot of experts, as you said, Rob, were even more surprised. Lots of people were predicting like 1% or 2%, and it's really been way above that.
It really has. So what's next? Well, everyone agrees that house prices are slowing at the moment. It's only up 0.1% September to October. Will we see slower growth in 2015? Well, actually, let's not talk about it now. Rob and I will do another episode, a full episode, and we'll speak to other people as well, and we'll get a collection of everyone's thoughts, and we'll do property price predictions for 2015. We've already started discussing it. How will the stamp duty changes have an effect? How will the mortgage restrictions that seem to be getting worse have an effect? And let's not forget the pension reforms that will kick in April. How will that affect the market? There's lots of things, good and bad, happening in the property market next year. Will that have an overall positive effect, or will it have a bit of a negative effect, or will it balance it out? We'll discuss it in detail. To be fair to us, we've not done too bad over the last couple of years. We've not got it bang on, but we've been there or thereabouts. In the general trends, we seem to got right. So will be this year we fall flat on our faces, or will we have another good year of predictions? We'll see, but we'll be brave enough to do it again in a few weeks, so make sure you join us for that one.
Yeah, only because it wasn't a complete disaster this time. You wouldn't have been hearing this episode if we'd been miles out. But
yeah, if we're wrong, then there's no 2015 review.
Yeah. But it's going to be a really interesting year, everything you talked about and the election, and it's going to be I think probably a more challenging prediction, so we'll see how we get on.
We will. Right, okay, so time for a lot of people's favourite segments, the resource of the week. And this week, Rob, we've taken a resource out of your new book. So I hope you don't mind, but I've installed it this week and I think it's really, really useful. So I wanted to share it with everyone. It's a catchy one. HTTPS everywhere.
Yeah, one to possibly file under boring but useful. It's not going to make you more money. It's not going to save you a lot of time, but it is going to protect you. So this is from a book that my wife and I wrote called Protect Your Tech. And one of the most popular chapters in that with people has been how to protect yourself when you're working, especially if you're working out and about on a public Wi-Fi connection, how you make sure that you don't get people hacking into your data. Because in the book, we talk about how people actually do it. And it's so much easier than you think. It was actually terrified me when I started researching it, realizing that you don't have to be some kind of master hacker to sort of see credit card details and personal information sort of going from your connection to whatever website you're sending it to. It's actually really, really easy to just do it with free software. And a piece of software that protects you against this is HTTPS everywhere, which is a browser extension, one of those useful little bits of software that you can add onto Chrome or Firefox or whatever it is that you use. And what this does is for every website where it has a secure option, it automatically redirects you to that secure area. So you'll notice that if you're using Facebook or something, most of the time it'll say HTTPS in your browser bar, and you might see a little picture of a padlock or something like that. That means it's a secure connection, which makes it virtually impossible for someone to hack in and see the data that is being passed across between you and that website. But there are lots of sites that have this option, but it's not always turned on by default, or there are areas of the sites that are secure and areas that are not. This extension makes sure that you're always using the secure version. So it's brilliant because you just install it once and then you never have to think about it again, and you can feel a lot safer than you were before. So it's not a time saver, it's not a money saver, but it is important because it's taking a risk away in one really easy single step.
Go and check it out. It's free. So remember, it's Chrome, Firefox, and I think even Internet Explorer, but why you're using that, I do not know. Right. And now it's time for our iTunes review of the week, and a big round of applause, please, for Nickname take so their nickname was really taken because they had to add lots of N's. Hi guys, such a great podcast as many others seem to have done. I've backtracked, gone through and listened to every episode in less than a month. I'm now replaying them to pick up some stuff I may have missed or not fully taken in first time round, as there was a lot of content in a short space of time. My favourite part is all the philosophy of being a nice person is not a weakness in the industry, but quite the opposite. If this was applied maybe more in the industry, it wouldn't have such a bad name. Keep up the good work. Many thanks. Nickname taken. Super. Thank you. If you're enjoying the show and you might not find your nickname taken, please leave a review and we will read it out. And we always do read them all. We really, really appreciate them, whether it's for this podcast or Property Investment Tips or any of the other ones we're involved in. We really do appreciate it. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
You could say that iTunes reviews are one of our favourite things. And next week, we're talking about our favourite things of 2014. Just when you thought you couldn't get any worse. Yes, next week's episode is our favourite things of 2014. So we're going to be rounding up books, podcasts, possibly TV shows, property trends, all kinds of stuff.
Apps. Don't forget apps, Rob.
Apps, of course, and more. All the kind of things that we've enjoyed. We know that a lot of people enjoy it. Sections like Resource of the Week, where we recommend something that we've been enjoying. So we thought we'd give a whole episode over to it and talk about lots of stuff, recapping some of the best things that we've talked about this year and lots more that haven't made it to the podcast.
Yeah, we're going up to Christmas now, so that's a nice episode, a fun one. But actually, these episodes tend to be some of the most popular because people do love all the apps in the podcast that they haven't found themselves, that Rob and I, because of what we do, are immersed in them. So we can bring them to you and hopefully you can take advantage of them. So that should be a really fun episode, something you can really use and utilise straight away next week. Okay, so remember that the meetup is now open for bookings. We are limited to the tickets because so many people turned up last time. It is free though, so it's not limited in a way that we're trying to, get everyone to buy. It's limited because it just genuinely is oversubscribed every time. So if you're keen to join us on Sunday the 4th at 5:30, then go to thepropertyhub.net/meetup. Grab your free ticket now. Don't delay, because when they're gone, they are gone. I promise you, this is not some salesy tactic. It's the truth. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, we would absolutely love to see you there. It would be absolutely brilliant to see you if you can make it along. But before that, we will see you back here next week for another episode of the Property Podcast. Until then, bye-bye.
I made it. I didn't fall out. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Property Podcast. Make sure you join our mailing list at thepropertypodcast.com.
And remember, we love 5-star reviews. Rob even loves them more than air miles.